Welcome back to another edition of the Optimize Weekly Market Recap. I'm David Ferreira, Portfolio Manager with Optimize Wealth Management. And as always for today's recap, we'll take a look at last week's activity in the markets, as well as what we're watching for in the week ahead. Investors took profits this past week following some very solid year-to-date gains and many growth stocks, especially big tech. Defensive and value-oriented names helped up best, with the Dow easing 2.9%. The TSX was off 2.4% for the week, even as the Bank of Canada reduced interest rates once again and signaled more rate cuts could be on the horizon. The S&P 500, meanwhile, slipped 4.3% on the week, and the Nasdaq down 5.8%. Zooming in on sector performance, consumer staples and real estate were the biggest gainers, while technology and energy lagged by the most. Looking at the events from this past week, on Friday, U.S. employment data for August showed 142,000 jobs created, slightly less than the 161,000 expected. More encouraging, however, was the unemployment rate, which fell to 4.2%, as was widely expected. This economic data continues to boost the case for a Federal Reserve rate cut later this month in September. Also on Tuesday, the ISM Manufacturing Purchasers Managers Index, the PMI, moved up to 47.2% from an 8-month low of 46.8%. This is encouraging news for the state of manufacturing in the US, which should support overall economic growth. In Canada, the Bank of Canada cut its benchmark rate once again by 25 basis points to 4.25%, the third time this year. Lower interest rates and the Bank of Canada's recent focus on economic growth is expected to be positive for consumers and business spending, which should be supportive of equity prices over the long term. For the week ahead, all eyes will be on the U.S. inflation data this week, with the release of Consumer Inflation Reading, or CPI, on Wednesday, and Producers Price Index, PPI, on Thursday. This will be the final inflation numbers before the Federal Reserve's interest rate decision on September 18th. On Friday, preliminary U.S. consumer sentiment data for September is due to be reported, which is expected to show an indication on how confident the American consumer is to continue spending. In Canada, building permits data for July will provide a look into Canadian housing activity. And looking at the corporate earnings calendar, notable names this week include Oracle, Adobe, and Kroger. And that's all for this week's edition of the Weekly Market Recap. As always, thank you for watching and see you soon.